Hello, I'm Tim and welcome to Gameplaycast. In this video, I'm going to be taking the new Sydonian Skatros, known affectionately as Admech Pole Boys, and levelling them up with some custom modelling. What do I mean by levelling up then? Well, when speaking to the manager of my local Warhammer store, he showed me some cool art images of the Pole Boys that someone had added hooded robes to. These additions resonated with me, and since I've done almost no modelling before, I accepted the challenge. What could possibly go wrong? Moreover, I have the full Admech Combat Patrol on my pile of shame, so I figured I needed some robed snipers for the win. In fairness, as soon as I saw the model, I thought these guys looked pretty damn awesome. So just from a modelling and painting perspective, I wanted to get at least one, and since I hate money, I bought two. An additional modification I'm planning is to magnetise their wrists and weapons to allow me to switch up between anti-vehicle and anti-infantry rifles. You know, for those 40k games I'll probably never get around to playing. Normally a pretty easy task, but these guys have some pretty tiny wrists. Thankfully, these boys are pretty simple to model and go together no bother. You only need your standard clippers and a craft knife or mould line removal tool. I always find that I spend ages removing mould lines and cleaning up minis, but I think it's worth it, as it's nothing more annoying than getting your base coat down only to find a load of really prominent mould lines you missed. Overall, this was pretty standard. My only real complaint is I'd have loved it if I could have reposed their legs, and I was tempted to attempt it, but I decided against it. At best, I might cut one leg down slightly to have him stood on a rock or something, as if one leg is retracted kind of thing, but I'll sort that out before I paint them. When gluing them together, I kept the weapons separate as well as the backpacks. This is to give me the space to mould the robes around, and obviously to add the magnets in. Speaking of which, on to the magnetisation. For this step, you will need a hobby drill, a 2mm drill bit, a craft knife, and some super glue. I chose some 2x1mm magnets for this job, as they seem to be the smallest I could find. This is a bit of a problem, as these are only just smaller than the Skatros' wrists. And I don't know if you've tried drilling things this thin before, but there's a good chance that the plastic just twists and comes apart. To make things better, these guys' forearms are even smaller. So drill too far, and you might just drill the wrist off completely. Perseverance is the key to success. So we plough on, death or glory. Technically you probably need a 2.5mm drill bit, and I think I'm using a 2mm drill bit. Consequently, I needed to really work the bit around to widen the hole in order to accept the magnet. Once I was happy that this was big enough, I also clipped away a small section. I did this to allow for the opening of the hole to fit the magnet. I'll also go back later and patch this with some Milliput. I then used standard super glue in the hole to secure the magnet, and the back of my craft knife to slot the magnet into place. Surprisingly, this process went rather well, so I repeated it for the second wrist and for each of the weapons. Top tip here is to ensure you pair the magnets up between the wrists and the weapons. Get this wrong, and they will repel each other. I found that doing this one at a time and manually checking before gluing was the best method. It is a bit of a faff, but last thing you want to do is super glue in the magnet and find out it's the wrong way around. Being the Boy Scout that I am, I tested my skills and my concept. This particular attempt worked out great. Surprisingly, I did it pretty much first time, and although my Greenstuff definitely had a few yellow hard bits, it still worked. Even the little hole that was left when I ripped out one of said yellow bits looked like wear and tear, so I left it. Unfortunately, attempt number 2 was not as smooth as this one. I instantly regretted not just filming the first run. Let's get this shit show on the road. I started as I did before with some Greenstuff, some Milliput, a bowl of hot water, some cheap silicone mould tools, a ruler and a craft knife. I mixed up my Greenstuff, as is standard practice for me. I made way too much. If anyone's interested, I stuck the ball I had left in some water and put it in the freezer to see if it keeps for any length of time. I'll come back to this in a future video. Anyway, once I had plenty of green stuff mixed up, I started to form the wings of the robe. Based on my first attempt, my plan was to make two roughly trapezoidal shapes. These measure about 10mm by 50mm by 15mm on the flat edges, with the diagonal edge being the outer edge of the robes when applied to the mini. I got this by rolling the green stuff out as thin as it would go, and then cutting the piece to size using the ruler and craft knife. I would say try to be as accurate as possible here, but there's plenty of wiggle room, so as long as the pieces are visually the same, we can mould them and trim them if needed later. Now this time round, I don't know if it was the green stuff being too warm, or my surface having too many scratches or sticking points, but every time I rolled the green stuff out, it got stuck to the desk. Previously, as long as the surface was wet, it was fine, but here I had some real problems. Eventually, I got there and then moulded it onto the model's shoulders. Whew.
Heresy grows from idleness.
Smooth the green stuff out as best you can, trying to form some classic folds and shapes to simulate material. I went for a kind of crosswind on my first model, and then a frontal breeze on the second. Time for the hood. Here I just rolled out a square using the same method as before, ensuring it was big enough to cover the pole boy's head. I did a few dry fits too, to get the position of the little scope on his head there. As part of the square, you need to ensure there's enough excess green stuff behind to make the hood. Once you're happy, fit this around his head and the scope. A note here is that I attached both my dudes with the scopes down because I think this looks better. If you are copying the box art, you might want to adjust the design of the hood or skip it completely. Once fitted around the top and the sides, cut a V shape at the back of his head and nip this together to form the classic pointed hood section. Mould the rest of the green stuff around, covering the gaps and joining the cape parts at the shoulders. While doing this, ensure you keep the backpack joining points as clean as possible so we can glue the backpack on later on. This, however, was when disaster struck. While moulding my hood, I managed to smush my cape sections.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
So a word to the wise. Maybe do the hood first, and or be careful how you hold the model while applying the other sections of the robe. Also on this, I did initially try to do it all as one piece, but it was overly difficult and the backpack basically hides all the joints, so why bother with the extra difficulty? Okay, so I ripped my crushed cape parts off and started again. I had the same issue as before with the green stuff sticking to the table. However, this time, I was pissed off. Anyway, an hour later, I managed to remake the pieces and reattach them to the model.
It's done. Yes, Mr. Frodo. It's over now.
If anyone has any tips on how to stop green stuff sticking to your table, please let me know in the comments. I'm wondering if I need to flour my surface or something. I have some alcohol cleaner, so maybe I just need to clean the surface more, or use cling film or something maybe. The final steps for me here were to mould the robes into a position I was happy with. I like to try and sell the illusion of motion, as I feel this is where you can really make a model look its best. My personal approach is to get a few concept images, watch some YouTube videos, and use that as inspiration. I then kind of go instinctively from there and try to build the model in my mind's eye. So far, this has seen me through, and my models keep getting better and better, so I'm happy to keep going like this. If you aren't as confident in your creative vision, maybe look for some material images and try to use them as a base point. So for these models, the concept art pictures and maybe some pictures of cloaks or capes billowing in the wind will help you out. Once you're happy with your sculpt, mix up a small amount of Milliput and cover over any rough areas, creases, the wrists, the weapon magnets, etc. I use this stuff a lot like filler as it's a lot more pliable than Greenstuff. Work this into all the bits you aren't happy with or where there's a mark or damage that will show through when you prime, then wait till it's dry and give all the Greenstuff and Milliput a good sand with some fine grade sandpaper. I use P1500 to 1200 sanding pads which I cut into strips. Don't go too crazy, but make sure you smooth off all the Milliput and any lumps and bumps in the Greenstuff. Obviously it's very thin, so be gentle and take your time. Time for the big reveal. Sorry Squidmar, stole your explosion big reveal thing. Boom. Look at these two boys. Have you ever seen more beautiful patchwork quilts? They do look a bit random at the moment, but it's nothing a bit of primer won't solve. These two look great and the robe definitely completes the look for me. The models on the box art look kinda naked in comparison. Now I just need to do the hard part and paint these lads up. My concept at the moment is to make a Forge World metallic army based on a frozen world. On this I have some nice ideas for how to base these two as well as the rest of my Admech Combat Patrol. Check out the next part of this video where I paint these two poor boys up. Hopefully you won't have to wait till 2030 for this. Let me know in the comments too if you like my army theme and the Mechanicus detachment, or if you have any better ideas you think I should do. And that is all you get. I've been Tim from Gameplaycasts, thanks for watching, and as always, f*** Erebus.